What is up, my sweet and spicy, sexy ass Genesys duelists? It is your boy, your favorite Indian duelist, back after a long hiatus, coming to you guys with not only a Genesys decklist, my friends, but as you can see, a Shaddoll Genesys decklist. Main decking what card? Oh, I don't know. Winda, the 60-pointed behemoth? So, without further ado, if you enjoy the video, if y'all like Genesys format, if y'all like Shaddolls, leave a like, maybe leave a comment, subscribe. But only subscribe if you're cool, though. The lamers don't subscribe. Anyway, let's get on with the profile. So, I actually have a number of different builds for Shaddolls Genesys, right? All of them have Winda in them, so don't worry about that. All of my Shaddol decks have Winda in them. Winda is tragically a necessary evil that we have to play in basically every format. I have seen builds without Winda in Genesys. Those builds are good. They do not shut your opponent out of the game. Hopefully, fingers crossed, one day Konami will get through the thick skulls that a lot of people don't enjoy floodgates, myself included. So if we ever get another Dark Shaddoll fusion, right, that is interaction as opposed to floodgates, one, it'll be way less points to Genesys, which would be great. And two, that means it will free up a lot more points. For the deck list, we can play like stronger non-engine and stuff, right? But for what it's worth, I think this deck, even the way it exists right now, is insane. I have not dropped a game yet with this in Genesys. Now, mind you, I haven't been playing a ton of Genesys. I've played like maybe 7 or 8 matches total, right? Haven't lost a single one. But yeah, so take it with a grain of salt. But so far, this was version 1 of the list, right? So you can see we have 1 alpha, we got 2 Cartesia, we got a holo. Now I see a lot of Shaddoll decks in Genesys and otherwise cutting holo. I think in advanced that is fine, right? But in Genesys, this guy is a key borderline, I wouldn't say pivotal piece of the end board, but he's really, really good on your end board. He's really, really good. We'll get into why in just a moment. Then we have Decatron and Deviati. For those of you who don't know, these cards aren't pointed. I don't know why. I am assuming on the next Genesys points update, they will be, because my 2 cents, you should not be allowed to run these 2 guys in a Shaddoll deck. Not in Genesys, anyway. Especially not with the monster negate. Maybe the spell trap negate, maybe, but even that is very powerful. But like the fact that you can just search these is beyond ridiculous. Then you'll see we have the 2 Earth Fairies, right? These guys who are now at 2 points each. Hashtag RIP, my boys. I was really digging them at 1. My deck was a touch more powerful with them at 1, but it's fine either way. So the reason these guys are in here is 1, they are a very useful Earth monster, right? And as we'll get to later, you need an Earth to make Mercer. And 2, their effects are stupid good. Because as you can see here, we're only on 1 app clone, 1 Winda, right? So the ability to be able to recycle these 2 cards with these 2 fairies is like beyond insane. Shaddolls is already very good at grinding, even if you don't have these in the deck, but throwing these into the deck really puts your grind game to another level, especially when you go second and you start Shaddoll Fusion, right? Like the ability to send Grista, Squam, and one of these Earth Fairies and just start Mercer is, oh my god, it's so powerful, right? Then we have 1 Aerial, 1 Genius. These are standard in like every Shaddoll list I've seen. I don't think I've seen a single one without them. And then we're running Chaos. So I'll speak to this more when I start talking about like my other builds. But in this build specifically, there were some hands where I had access to like Squamata and or Hedgehog, but I didn't have access to like a Cartesia, right? So the idea here was we set either Squamata or Hedgehog, and we spell Book of Knowledge either one of them away, right? Now, depending on what your graveyard looks like, maybe you just send the Grist off the Squamata, maybe you don't. Maybe you send the Hedgehog to search the Chaos, and in the case of Hedgehog, you just search the Chaos, right? And then that with any of your 6 Shaddoll spells will get you to Construct, right? So that was the idea there. That, and it also gives you like a light in graveyard to be able to schism away, which is relevant because for those of you who have read the full effect of Blazing Cartesia, it does add itself back to your hand, which is both good because card advantage and a way to fuse guaranteed on your next turn, and bad because it kind of robs you of some of the flexibility of Schism. That having been said, most of the time it shouldn't be an issue, mainly because you go through 2, sometimes all 3 constructs during the course of this combo, right? 2 Wendy, I've seen a lot of people on like 1 Wendy in Advanced, and in the few other Genesis lists I've seen for this deck, I've seen a lot more people be at 2, but I've still seen some at 1. I think this card is like a mandatory 2 of in the Genesis builds. In Advanced, there's like an argument. Even in Advanced, I kind of like running 2, but I can see why people would only play 1, right? This card right here is what makes getting to Hollow such an easy part of the end board, right? And if y'all have played this deck, Hollow being face on your board is massive during your opponent's turn, specifically because of this new fusion Wendy K, right? Then of course we got the 1 Beast, the 1 Dragon. These are both very standard. And now here we're actually on 2 Hedgehog versus 1. A lot of the Genesis lists I've seen are still only on 1 of this guy. All the Advanced lists I've seen are only on 1 of this guy. In Advanced, I think 1 is correct. Mainly because you're much less likely to get to like a turn 3 or 5 or turn 4 or 6 situation, right? But in Genesis, I feel like you want to Hedgehog, simply because it gives your deck overall a little bit more flexibility in what it can do. One thing I noticed when I was playtesting is you trigger Construct a ton. You trigger App Clone almost guaranteed every game, right? So the idea there is like, you just want more cards in your deck to be able to send that are good. I think Hedgehog is good enough, right? Sending Hedgehog represents searching Wendy, it represents searching Squam, it represents searching Grista, which we will talk about Grista in just a moment, because I have some things to say about these new cards, alright? But yeah, so 2 Hedgehog I think is good. 1 Hound. So this is another, really dog shit Shaddoll. I hate to be that guy, but like, not every archetype can be full of bangers, right? You will get some stinkers like Hound, like Chaos. That having been said, I think there are some niche applications with Hound, right? One of them being like, if you have a Wendy, you open the Hollow, so if you're activating a Wendy rather, you have the Hollow in hand, what do you set? You set the Beast. Well, generally, flipping a Beast during your opponent's turn doesn't matter much, right? When does it matter is during your turn, so you can see more cards, right? And that's kind of what the Hound was in here for initially. There's also some similar niche applications with like, if you're activating Wendy, you can set Hedgehog, send Hound, flip the Hedgehog, search one of your spells instead of triggering the Hedgehog effect, right? There's also some other like very niche case scenarios where like if you have a Dragon or a Hollow set on your side of the board during your opponent's turn, and you either El Shaddoll Fusion or Incarnation into a Construct, you can send a Hound to flip either of these up during your opponent's turn to get another interruption. This is, of course, assuming you have either already used Special K or she's just not on your board, right? Which sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes the situation does come up, right? Then we have 2 Squamata. Every list I've seen in Genesis is playing 3. I am super close to moving to 3 of the Squamata as well, right? Squamata is like beyond phenomenal, beyond really good. But for my first Genesis list, I really wanted to keep it at like a tight 40. Just because I think the deck is like super consistent when it's at a tight 40. The reason I've been winning all of my games is because I've been seeing all of these spells that are broken. This one's less broken, but we'll talk about why this is in here. But yeah, so that's the reason for 2 Squamata. In hindsight, maybe the Hound could have been another Squamata. But again, my favorite thing about Shaddolls is that as a deck, it is so flexible in what it can do. And I think adding Hound adds a little bit of flexibility to the deck, right? So that's why it's in here. We'll get to some other builds that have cut some of the less good Shaddoll cards. But this is for people who like just really want to play Shaddolls full stop, right? And then of course we have Grista. So Grista, it's so good. It's so beyond insane that they printed this card, right? Flip effect, you can target one non-rock Shaddoll monster in your graveyard, apply its effects when this card's flipped face up. This effect almost doesn't fucking matter, right? I have yet to encounter a situation where I'm like, yes, I want a Krista face up on my board, or face down on my board to be flipped with special K, right? Like, this effect barely matters. This effect right here, if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can fusion summon one Shaddoll monster from your extra deck by banishing materials from your hand, field, and or graveyard. And then it locks you out of monsters from the extra deck except Shaddolls, right? But that doesn't matter. You can see my whole extra deck. We have Granguinol for the fusion deployment, and we got these two chuds for the Ultimate Slayer, which we'll get into this card in just a moment. If you know what this does, you'll understand why this is in the deck. But every other card that we're going to summon, or rather every card that we're going to summon out of the extra deck, these 12 right here, they all got that Shaddoll name in there, baby. Like, these cards are beyond insane, right? So, the lock on Grista does not matter for this deck at all. I will say, because Grista and Lev, which we'll get to, Shaddoll lock you, that is part of the reason why I think this deck will be much worse in Advanced, even though it can play a higher capacity of very powerful cards, right? Ultimately, I think it will be proportionally worse in in Advanced because it Shaddoll locks you. I think if you were free to play whatever extra deck cards you wanted, the deck might be too good in Advance. But because it Shaddoll locks you, which I think is fair, it will be much worse proportionally, right? So anyway, so that's it for the monsters. Now the spells. 3 El Shaddoll Fusion. This card is so good with OTKing. We'll get to that in a moment. Hey, this is Curry D Pastry from the future. I was watching back the video I was just editing, and I realized 2 things. One, I was talking about why Shaddolls are like much worse situated for Advance, and I mentioned like that a Shaddoll locks you. I think while yes, that is true, that is only a small part of why it's so much worse in Advance. I think this deck hard loses to a well-timed Ash. A single well-timed Ash, I think, shuts this deck down. A single Droller Lockbird shuts this deck down. A Fulos makes it not much harder, but a little bit harder for you to play. And because hand traps are so prevalent and everywhere, and this deck really fucking kind of gets its ass blown out by hand traps, it's much better in Genesys, where hand traps come with like the premium of having points, so you're much less likely to encounter cards like Ash, Droll, stuff like that. Even Ghost Bell now has 6 points, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing, really quickly, I talked about El Shaddoll Fusion and OTKing, and then when I was watching it back, I realized I never talked about the OTK potential of El Shaddoll Fusion. So, very quickly, the idea is simple, right? You summon your board of guys. Generally, your board of guys will include a Mercer, a Construct, and some other dudes, maybe a second Construct. The idea, essentially, is that your opponent's board is a little bit clear, right? So, you swing with Construct, maybe the second Construct, and Mercer. Then you trigger El Shaddoll Fusion. And you fuse these 2 guys into either a Shekinah or another Construct. Then you use the Mercer to re-bring back the Construct, right? So effectively, assume your opponent's board is clear. If you swing 28 and 28 and then you El Shaddoll Fusion, that puts your overall damage capacity to, I think, 11-2, which is like 3,000 points over what you need to kill your opponent. Hell, you can activate triple Upstart Goblin and kill through a clear board with just these 2 dudes and an El Shaddoll Fusion, right? So I believe this deck has become like way more aggressive with the inclusion of El Shaddoll Fusion. That's what I wanted to talk about. I felt it was important and necessary to clarify my point, simply because I don't like being wrong. Okay. I'm an egomaniac, I'm sorry. Okay, future Crazy Pastry gone. Goodbye. 2 fusion deployment for my 2 Cartesia. Ideally, we want a fusion deployment of the Cartesia out. Opening it is fine, but ideally we want a fusion deployment out, specifically because we can get to Decatron like 90% of our games as our normal summon, right? Off of the Void and Unleashing, which I will again get to. So you'd rather just special the Blazing Cartesia instead of eating your normal and not being able to summon Decatron, right? Left Shaddoll Fusion. Alright, so this, oh my god, it's hard to rank these new Shaddoll cards. I think it's very easy to put Special K at the bottom. Special K is still crazy. I think it's easy to put her at the bottom of the new cards. But like the rest of these cards, they all just work together so well. It's hard to know which one is the second best. I say second best because there is one that I think, in my humble opinion, is clearly like just a full step above the rest of them. And we'll get to him, them. I think them is technically more accurate. Whatever, who cares? They're cardboard. Who gives a fuck? So, Love Shaddoll Fusion. When this card's activated, you can send a fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, tribute one fusion monster, special summon one Shaddoll fusion monster with a different attribute from your extra deck. But its attack becomes 0. You can only use each effect once per turn, and you can't, again, it extra deck locks you, right? So this card is bananas, because this card, the first part of this card, does what Grand Guignol does on the board, right? This lets you punt App Clone. App Clone, for those who don't know, lets you search a Shaddol card from your deck or grave, and then discard a card, right? So that is beyond insane, specifically because if you open Love Shaddoll Fusion, you activate it. You punt App Clone. App Clone triggers, you add Squamata. Oh, what do you want to discard? You want to discard Squamata, because it discards for effect, right? Discard Squamata, trigger Squamata, send Grista from your deck to the grave, trigger Grista, banishing Grista, Squamata, and App Clone to make my goat. We will get to him, but we make this guy, and this unlocks the entire deck, right? So Love Shaddoll Fusion would already be pretty rock solid if that's all it did. But then it says you can tribute a fusion monster to fusion summon another one, right? Special summon, but it's treated as a fusion summon, so they're considered properly summoned, which becomes very important whenever you're tributing Mercer. Again, we'll get to him. But this card is like beyond insane. All of the one card combos y'all have seen on YouTube probably start with either this guy or Mathematician or Armageddon Knight, which again, we'll get to those guys as well. Give it a moment. Then we're on 3 Shaddoll Fusion. This is standard. I think this makes sense. A lot of people I've seen playing Genesys are on like 2 and 2. And they also aren't playing Winda, which blows my mind. But they're not playing Winda so they can play like higher powered non-engine. I think there's an argument to be made in defense of those people that like you want the higher power non-gen to stop like the really crazy decks from popping off. But I think Genesys as like a format is so much more of like a lower power ceiling than Advance that the necessity of hand traps becomes a little amorphous, right? You'll see here in my entire list, I only have one hand trap and it's in the sideboard and that's it, right? I think this deck can play through boards pretty easy, assuming you don't hard break, right? We'll get to what you can do in situations where you hard break, right? Now I'm sure some of you are like, oh well, you know, you have 2 very easily cuttable cards right here in Spellbook of Knowledge. Why don't you just cut these guys for some, you know, spicy non-engine, maybe 0 pointed, maybe cut this chick for some like slightly pointed non-engine, right? Let me tell y'all a little something about this card, Spellbook of Knowledge, right? Send to the graveyard either one spellcaster monster you control or one other spellbook card from your hand face up on the field except Spellbook of Knowledge, and if you do, draw 2 cards. You can only activate 1 Spellbook of Knowledge per turn. This card is insane. Let me take that back. This card is very good. It is beyond insane, right? I keep saying beyond insane. That's not true. It's not beyond insane. There's an argument to be made that you could cut this card. I just really, really like drawing cards, and I really, really like triggering my Shaddol effects, right? One very often in this deck, you will find hands that don't let you get to Lev Shaddol. Let's assume it's like Wendy and any other monster that isn't a Shaddol, right? So not many, but there are a few, right? Or let's assume it's Cartesia and Wendy, not necessarily Squamata, but specifically Wendy, right? So the idea there is you fuse into whatever Shaddoll fusion you want. Maybe you use like this and this with an El Shaddoll fusion, make Shekinanga, right? Awesome. In that situation, if you have Spellbook of Knowledge, you don't want to summon Hollow, right? Don't get me wrong, Hollow is still phenomenal, and there are still ways to get it onto your end board during your opponent's turn. But the idea here is that when you have Spellbook of Knowledge, the most profitable thing you can do is summon Beast face down, right? So Spellbook of Knowledge just says send to the graveyard 1 spellcaster monster you control. It does not specify face up. So you can send the Beast. You can draw 2 cards, trigger the Beast effect, draw 3 cards, right? So you've now gone a full +1 off the Spellbook of Knowledge. And for those of you who have maybe played around with this deck, you'll know that like drawing 3 cards in Shaddolls is bananas. It is so good. The number of games I have won off of having kind of a weird hand setting a Shaddol monster, or honestly summoning one of 2 Cartesias, and then Spellbook acknowledging it away to draw 2, sometimes 3 cards, or 2, but also plussing on another card, is beyond insane, right? Like, oftentimes you'll have like a hand with like maybe 5 Shaddol monsters, right? I think that is genuinely the worst hand this deck can produce, is just 5 Shaddol monsters, no way to trigger them, right? This is a situation obviously where you're going first. So in that situation, or rather 4 Shaddol monsters and a knowledge, right? So in those situations, sometimes the best thing you can do is just set the Squam, set the Hedgehog, and then trigger the knowledge, right? And then this will open up your hand so much more. Now there is a chance you just dead draw more Shaddolls, and that's God's way of saying, hey, you're gonna lose this game. But I think knowledge is super crazy, super good, and it has 0 points, which is maybe the most important thing about this card, right? So I like it. Obviously, you can sub it with something else if you prefer, but this is my tech that I think really synthesizes well with the deck. That's enough about Spellbook of Knowledge. I really like that card. Next up, this guy. I think there's a very real argument that this is the second best card that they have printed for Shaddolls, right? Reveal 1 Shaddoll card in your hand, add 2 Shaddoll cards from your deck to your hand, each with a different type, so monster, spell, or trap, from the revealed card and from each other, then discard 1 card. Then, you can banish this card from the graveyard, add 1 Infernoid monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn, who cares? Does not Shaddoll lock you, which is great on its own. There's maybe a world where like you don't play Levs and you don't play Gristas and you just play 3 of this. I think that world is terrible and I don't want to live in it, but there is maybe a world where you do that, right? So this card is effectively a +1, because you're using 1 card to search 2 and then you're discarding 1. Some people would maybe call that a break even. The reason, obviously, Shaddol players don't, is because 9 out of 10 times, the card you're going to search is going to be like Squamata, maybe a Hedgehog, maybe Grista, if your graveyard's already set up, maybe a Wendy, right? And generally you search a Schism, or if you reveal one of your Shaddol guys, you'll search a left Shaddol fusion and a Schism. Or if you have Schism in hand, you search a left Shaddol fusion and one of your monster guys. But what this does is it lets you kind of fix your hand, right? If you open a spell, you search any of your Shaddol monsters plus Schism, and you can then send the Squamata, trigger the effect, send Grista, or send Wendy if you have a knowledge, right? Or maybe if you don't have a knowledge but you have a Grista in hand already, maybe you don't need it. If you have one of your Shaddol guys, you search left Shaddol fusion and Schism. Left Shaddol fusion, as I previously explained, is like the entire combo of the deck, right? Or if you have Schism, you search any of the spells that you don't have, and then any of these guys that you want to be triggering, right? And then on top of that, for whatever reason, they say you can then banish this card from your graveyard, add an Infernoid card. Golly gee, which one will we add? Maybe Decatron, who then becomes a permanent monster negate on board, as long as you have other monsters to tribute. You can also tribute him as a monster negate. So this is insane, because assuming you don't open either of these 2, which I did a lot, we'll get into that when I explain some of the other builds, right? But essentially the idea is banish this guy, search Decatron, summon Decatron, send Eviati, monster negate. If you're doing this before your 5th summon, you're insulated from Nib, which I don't really know how popular that is anymore since it's at 8 points, but I'm sure they'll run into some people who are playing it. This also insulates you from cards like Bell, which if they have a Bell, they should 100% activate it on the banish effect. Oh, actually, this banishes for cost, so I don't think they can. But it insulates you from Bell, it insulates you from Skullmeister, right? There's a number of cards that this will just insulate you from, and more importantly, that this will then be able to negate during your opponent's turn, right? So this is insane. Then we have the 1 Reincarnation, 1 Schism. These cards are both beyond insane. The majority of my end boards have ended on Lev with a set El Shaddol, set Incarnation, set Schism, and some combination of like Mercer, Construct, Special K, or Shekanaga, right? Sometimes, very rarely, it's all 4, but you have to be playing out of your mind to be able to do that. Most of the time, it's like any 2 of those guys plus the set Hollow is generally my end board, right? So that's it for the main deck, right? Side deck is the same for all these decks. It's just 3 Ulti Slayers, 3 Twin Twisters, 3 Interrupted Kaiju Slumber with the 3 Kaiju attributes that we want. But yeah, this sideboard stays the same. If y'all can think of some better side cards, which I will talk about a few that are pointed here in a little bit. But this has just been like my standard sideboard. I think this works great, right? Going first, there is almost no better game plan than Winda. So you don't really side in a ton of cards for going first. So the sideboard is very much dedicated to going second. Twin Twisters is for Dim Fissure and heavy back row decks. Ulti Slayers for like anything, basically. Almost every deck has something that you want to be Ultimate Slayering, so you can just toss in 3 of those going second. Interrupted Kaiju Slumber is a board wipe, which can trigger your Shaddolls. So in a situation where like you open 4 Shaddolls and Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, if one of those Shaddolls is Squam, you can just set the Squam and then activate Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, getting rid of your own Squam, triggering its effect, right? So this card is very, very good. I like this card a lot. 3 Kajus to go with it and to be able to search off of it. And then of course 3 Skullmeister, because this card doesn't have points. Even though I think there's an argument to be made, like, give it 1. I don't want them to, because I like my sideboard. I think it's a very solid sideboard. But there's an argument to be made that Skullmeister deserves 1 point, neither here nor there. Next up, the extra deck. Pretty straightforward stuff. 1 App Clone, you want a Water Fusion. There might be some water decks running around, and you want Schism to be able to remove those water monsters, right? Schism, by the way, is a fusion spell. That's a miracle fusion. But attached to that is a non-targeting removal spell. Non-targeting, non-destruction removal spell. So this, that means Schism effectively outs Dragoons, which is great. But essentially, it sends a card that matches the attribute of the monster you summon, right? It's the reason we're playing the whole suite of Shaddoll guys. We got the 1 Grista, the 1 Shekinaga, the 1 Anoyatilis, the 3 Construct, the 1 Winda, and the 2 Special K. This card's effect is basically irrelevant. The only effect that really matters on it is if this card sent to the graveyard, you can target the Shaddol spell or trap in your grave, add it to your hand. All of the OG Shaddolls have that, right? So at the end of Anoyatilis, at the end of Construct, end of Grista, end of Shek, end of Winda, and at the end of the old Wind Fusion, which I don't remember what it was called because it was so bad I never played it ever. But at the end of all of those, they have that little clause, right? So very, very cool effects. It's also kind of why, you know, Hollow works decently in Genesys specifically, because it sends a Shaddoll monster from your extra deck to banish a monster that has an attribute of the same type on the board. It's another reason why Hollow is so good, because you're playing all the attributes of all the Shaddoll guys, right? So it's just very powerful. You get to trigger all of their engrave effects. It's great. App Clone we've already talked about a little bit, but something a lot of people don't really know because it's so consistently used to get a card, right? Sometimes you might just open Void Liberation and you don't need to send App Clone, right? So in that situation, I believe it says you can. Oh no, it's a mandatory effect. So you can send whatever fusion monster. Hell, you can send Grand Guignol for all I care. It doesn't really matter much, right? If you don't open fusion deployment, Grand Guignol matters a lot less. So the idea behind the App Clone on board, right? If it's special summon, you can target a face-up card on the field and negate its effects. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Shaddoll card from your deck or graveyard to the hand and discard 1 card. It must first be fusion summoned. Gotta fusion summon it first. And then immediately underneath it, cannot be destroyed by battle. The number of games I have won across the various formats where this has been legal by just schisming for this instead of Winda and just having it sit on my board with my opponents unable to swing over it because it can't be destroyed is so goddamn funny. I love this card. This card's great. If we ever get another Dark Shaddoll monster that's like at 5 points or 0 points or whatever, I would definitely up this guy to 2. This guy is insane, beyond crazy. 2 Shaddoll monsters with different attributes is hella easy, especially now. It's so good. Then of course, my goat, my beloved, my mother, Shaddoll Construct. This card's insane, must first be fusion summoned. If it's special summoned, note, it says specialed, not fusion summoned. If this card's special summoned, you can send 1 Shaddoll card from your deck to the graveyard, destroys all monsters that are special, destroys all special summoned monsters by battle, right? If this card is sent to the graveyard, add a Shaddoll spell, trap, yada yada. This is just a really good way to thin your deck to kind of make your top decks a lot better. You can also very consistently send, like, if you're missing an El Shaddoll for whatever reason, you can send it and then use the effect of Lev to tribute the construct to then add the El Shaddoll and then summon it. If you want another construct or maybe a special K or a Mercer, again, we'll get to him. You can also send Incarnation, which is what I've been doing in most of my combos. Just sending Incarnation and then either fusing this guy or tributing it with Lev to add it back the Incarnation, right? Incarnation is a house and a half. There are some niche situations where, like, maybe you don't end on 1DK, but you do end on the Hollow face down, where you want the Incarnation engraved just to be able to trigger the Hollow during your opponent's turn. 9 out of 10 times, you want to add it to hand, though. Grista is just a special summon negate, I believe inherent summon specifically, and then you discard a Shaddoll monster from your hand. This is one of the two ways in which you can get both a hollow and a dragon, or a hollow and a beast set to your side of the board before you trigger Wendy K, which just gives you more stuff to do with her and with your two dudes, obviously. This card's alright, it's fine. It's really more in here as a target to either send off hollow or a way to fuse off one of these three if they are in your hand, as opposed to being in your, well, this guy and this guy if they're in your hand. If this guy's in your hand and this guy isn't, then you normal summon this guy almost 9 out of 10 times. Let's talk about Mercer for a little bit. His actual name is Meshasharer. I can't say that shit. His name is El Shaddoll Matthew Mercer, bro. Mercer for short, right? So, his materials, unlike all of the other Shaddolls monsters which require 2, this guy requires a Shaddoll, a Dark, and an Earth, right? So, it must first be fusion summoned, unaffected by your opponent's activated spell trap effects, and the activated effects of your opponent's monsters, whose original level/ranks are lower than this card's level, right? This is beyond insane. This effect alone, I think, well, not this effect alone, but this effect is part of the reason why I think this is the single best piece of Shaddoll support printed in the last 7 years, but Schism is really good too. This is maybe tied with Schism insofar as like how good these cards are, right? But this card is beyond insane, utterly ridiculous. The number of games I won because I summoned this guy first, activated his effect, and my opponent's sitting there with either an Imperm or a Veiler being like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Like, Mercer lets you, so let me continue reading it. Mercer, once per turn you can pay 800, add a Shaddoll, or avoid spell trap from your deck to your hand. This card would already be insane if it could just search left Shaddoll fusion, like that's truly all you need this guy to do. But he says no, I'll do you one better. I'll search you the guy that gets you Lev plus something else, bro. He said, listen, I am Himothy, or Shimothy, or Demothy, bro. It's just, this card is insane. And then, it's a graveyard effect. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Shaddoll monster from your graveyard. Now, tragically, you can't summon him. He does say must be fusion summoned. I did correct somebody on YouTube when I thought this did not have this line of text saying, well, you just bring back Mercer and use him as infinite material. But that is not how this card works. Konami, thankfully, is a little bit better at card design than I am. If it did work like that, this would be beyond insane. Specifically because this does not have a once per turn on the effect. Or excuse me, it does, but it's a soft once per turn, right? So that means you can pay 800 per copy of Mercer you have on your board. Now this also includes Mercers that have been flip face down and then flip face back up in the same turn, right? Which the situations that happens is almost zero. You might have to be playing Book of Tayu. I'll reread Wendy K when we get there, but even so, this card is beyond insane, right? So the general idea is like, you summon this guy first, you search out Void Unleashing, you activate Void Unleashing. If you haven't got Left Shaddoll, you search that, you search Schism. If you do have Left Shaddoll, or you don't have or you have a different Shaddoll spell as opposed to any of the monsters in your hand, you reveal one of those, you search like Squam, you search Schism, and then you can trigger the Squam if you haven't already, you can trigger the Wendy if you haven't already, you can trigger the Hedgehog. Y'all get the idea. This guy is just beyond insane. All of the combos, so the way I view this deck, right, is all roads eventually lead to Winda, but all roads inevitably pass by Mercer and Construct. There's a reason why there's 3 Construct, 2 Mercer in here, right? I almost really want to put this card 2-3. We'll talk about why I haven't, but it's pretty evident why, right? There's just not space, because I wanted to play the entire Shaddoll suite. I wanted to play, 2 of my Ulti Slayer targets, and I needed to play this guy for the fusion deployment. But yeah, this card is so beyond unnecessarily good. I will be shocked. Konami, you hear me? I will be beyond shocked if this card remains unpointed after the Creo list comes out. I'll be happy. I'll be celebrating. You'll see me in the streets partying. But I think there's almost no way this guy gets off without at least 5 points. TLDR, Mercer's like the best card in the deck. Like, hands down, bar none. I don't think there's really much room for discussion on this. Some people might say it's Void and it's Lev, which, like, maybe, But my argument is that the reason Lev is good is because it gets you Mercer. The reason Void is good is because it gets you Lev, which gets you Mercer. The reason Mercer is good is because the second he hits the board, whichever one of these two you have in search, you probably can. And then you can also search the Schism, right? Off the Void Unleashing if you haven't already. Or if, say this is like your second copy and you're like in the middle of your combo and you don't have Schism or Incarnation or El Shaddoll Fusion, just pay the 8 again and then search whatever you're missing. It is not that hard. It is very, very good. Then we have Shekinaga. He's the special summon effect negation, right? So when a special summon monster activates its effect while you have a Shaddoll, it's a quick effect. You can negate the activation. If you do destroy that monster, then send the Shaddoll card from your deck to the grave. This card is just a very solid piece of the end board. Many of you maybe noticed that left Shaddoll says reduces attack to 0, but it does not reduce the defense to 0. So oftentimes you'll end up, either tributing the Mercer or tributing the Construct, and just summoning the Shekinaga or the Special K in defense off of that, as opposed to hard making it, right? Because like while the attack on this guy is pretty huge at 26, defensive 3k is like phenomenal. And just keeping this guy around during your opponent's turn is just so beyond good, right? Granguinol, as explained, is just for a fusion deployment target. Special K, so this card is sick. You can change any number of face-down monsters on the field to face-up defense position. Then you can count the number of flip monsters among them and change that many face-up monsters on the field to face-down. So this plus Hollow, right? I've been talking a lot about the end board, right? So the reason this is so good is because this plus Hollow, face down on your board, represents not 1, but 2 interruptions. Same is true for Shaddoll Dragon, right? You activate the Wendy, you flip up your Hollow, you Book of Moon one of your opponent's monsters, then you trigger the Hollow, send the requisite attribute, to banish that other monster, and that's the second interruption, right? Dragon is the same thing, you just flip it and you bounce back a monster, right? Both are very good. Now, if you have Wendy K and both of these guys up, that represents 3, technically 4 interruptions, depending on how you count an interruption. I count them per card. But Wendy K would then, in that situation, be able to Book of Moon 2 guys, and then you'll be able to trigger both of these guys' effects. So if your whole board is just Wendy K and these two, there's a world where you can just board wipe your opponent depending on how far they're extending, depending on how well they know the Shaddoll cards, etc., right? If your opponent knows the Shaddoll cards, then generally they won't overextend into this, which is generally why Wendy K plus one of these two is usually better. In my opinion, if your opponent doesn't know the Shaddoll cards, they have to sack the shit out of you or be like God's gift to Yu-Gi-Oh! To be able to play around them, right? But yeah, so Wendy K is crazy, and Wendy K's graveyard effect, right? You can only use the effect of Wendy K once per turn. That is a hard once per turn, so there's no point in having 2 Wendy K. You do need a Bukatayu to do the Mercer play about flipping it down, flipping it face back up, the way I was talking about earlier, neither here nor there. Or hear me out, you need to Wendy K the Mercer turn 1 by like flipping a beast or something, and then activate the Incarnation to flip this guy back up. The downside is that it banishes the Incarnation. I didn't talk about Incarnation. It just changes a face-down monster you control to face-up defense, or changes one face-up monster you control to face-down defense when you banish it out of the graveyard along with the Shaddoll. Its on-board effect is, I think, way better. Target a Shaddoll monster in your graveyard, special summon it in face-up or face-down defense position. This is crazy because it can combo with Wendy K if you don't have any guys set, but it can also let you resummon Construct, or, and hear me out, this is the more base thing to do, it lets you resummon Winda if its effect has been negated. We'll talk about how you get there in just a moment, but Wendy K is insane specifically because it does the face-up, face-down thing, but also if it's sent to the grave, you can target one Shaddoll card in your graveyard and add it to your hand. This just says Shaddoll card, so it's not just specifically spell or trap, right? So if for some reason, like, say your opponent has summoned like 2 monsters, you activate Wendy K, you flip up the Hollow, you Book of Moon one of them, banish the other with Hollow, and then your Wendy K is just sitting kind of dead on board. You have like no Shaddoll cards in hand, but you have a Shekinaga that's been unused in your hand, right? You can then activate the El Shaddoll fusion that you most likely have set to fuse the Wendy and the Hollow into either another Wendy, an Ad clone if it's still in your extra deck, or a Grista, then trigger the Wendy and add back something like Hedgehog if you have both Grista and Shek on the board, or just add a Winda, so that way you can discard it off the Grista if you don't have Shek, to then be able to trigger the effect of Wendy, right? Or you can add back Hedgehog to then search the Wendy to then trigger both of these guys' effects. There's just a lot of, again, my favorite thing about any deck about any deck I play is how flexible is it? Can it deal with a variety of different situations? How good is it into a wide array of decks? And Shaddolls, in my opinion, is at the moment in Genesys, as far as I'm aware, the best. The best in that specific category, which is my favorite thing about every deck I've ever played, ever. Then to round out the extra deck for the Ulti Slayer targets, we have one Ecclesia the Dark Dragon, one Aggregator. Y'all should know what Aggregator does when it's sent to the graveyard, usually from Ulti Slayer. Target a monster on the board, negate its effects. Represents 2 interruptions, right? Now, Ecclesia the Dark Dragon is very interesting, but I think it's worth talking about, right? So I'm choosing to dedicate 3 of my points out of my extra deck to this guy over Pack Pit, right? Because this and Pack Pit effectively do the same thing. The 2 differences, I would argue, is one, the main phase of this, you can banish this card until the end phase, and if you do special summon 1 Fawn of Albaz or 1 level 4 lower monster that matches from your deck or graveyard. This will almost never come up. I say almost because there may be some like turn 2, turn 3 situations where your opponent has like very carefully maneuvered through your board and they've maybe gotten rid of some of your back row, where you have a Cartesia and you have like a level 4 monster on the board, Cartesia in your hand more than likely, and a level 4 guy on the board, and you summon the Cartesia and then you just go for this guy, right? You just synchro for this guy. Then you can trigger this effect to summon a second Cartesia. So what this effectively has done is it's allowed you to kind of extend into another body, right? And it's also giving you like this cute little, phasing in and out effect. If they target it for an effect, you can banish it. It's fine. It's all well and good. It's okay. That effect, again, will only come up in like the most niche scenarios. The much more important effect, which is generally why we're playing it, is an Ulti Slayer target, right? If it's in your graveyard, you can target 1 level 8 fusion monster in your graveyard or banishment and 1 card on the field. Shuffle both of those cards and this card into the deck. So what does this mean? Well, for one, it's 1 level 8 fusion, so you can't recycle Window or App Clone, which is fine, or Grista, I guess. But again, that's fine, right? So the reason this is in here is 1, Schism is a house and a half of a card. You'll be using this card a lot. And if you have this in your graveyard, you can quite freely banish like a Construct or a Mercer or a Shek or an Anoya Tillis, though generally you don't want to target this unless it's the only banished card, right? But you can banish one of these house and a halves of cards off the Schism and not feel bad, because you can Ulti Slayer this into the grave and then target whichever one of these guys is banished and a card on the board, shuffle both of those back into the deck, and then also shuffle this back into the deck. So what does that mean? That means if for whatever reason the game lasts until like, say you activate the Ulti Slayer going second, somehow maybe you've banished one of your fusions off of the Grista, that is an App Clone, right? Who knows? But let's say you activate the Ulti Slayer going second after you fusion summoned already off the Grista. You can then bounce back 1 monster, bounce back another monster, and now if it goes to turn 4, which respectfully, it probably shouldn't, because you've cleared 2 of their monsters with 1 card, right? But if it goes to turn 4 and you have another Ulti Slayer in hand, you now have another target. You can now target another Synchro monster again, and then if you've activated Schism, which you should have, that's just once again like 2 more pops and more just recycling of your big ass guys, right? So I like this card a little bit more than Packbit for that specific reason. This card is also $55, whereas Packbit, I believe, is like way cheaper. So we'll get into Packbit here in a little bit. At the moment, I don't even own one of these. I have actually been playing Packbit, and we'll talk about what we can sub in and out, right? But this was the overall start, right? This is the deck I've been playing my first like 4 or 5 matches of Genesys with. I did take this deck to a tournament. I did go 2-0 at the tournament, 4-0 in games. Like I said, I have not dropped a game. I did go 2-0 at the tournament, and then I had to leave because I had work the next morning and I get up at 5 for work, right? So this is the initial list of Genesys. And then after playing this at this tournament, I realized I was bricking on, this guy's not really a brick, he's just a normal summon that you can't search, but like, there are worse things, right? I bricked on this motherfucker a lot. Like, out of the 4 games I played, I opened this guy twice. I do not like this card, specifically because I opened it so much, and it kind of looks a little ugly, neither here nor there, but I don't love this package, right? I was like, so if I don't want to play this package, what else can I play? And that kind of brought me into this next build. So you'll see in this next build, we have cut the Alpha, and we've cut the Infernoids, and we've just put in 3 Mathematician, right? Mathematician is another 1-card starter, which I really, really like. I think this deck is, well, it has a literal shit ton of 2-card hands that kind of get you to the end board you want to be getting to. It doesn't really have any 1-card cards that do that, right? Shaddoll Fusion going second is a 1 card that does that. Love Shaddoll Fusion is the one card that does that, and now Mathematician in this build is a card that does that. Why Mathematician over Armageddon Knight? Specifically, Armageddon Knight I think is like just the slightest touch better, because in the situation where you've already sent Squam to the grave and you want to specifically send Beast to draw a card, Mathematician will not allow you to do that by virtue of it being higher than level 4, right? And Mathematician says send one level 4 lower deck card from your deck to your graveyard. So in that specific, very niche situation, Armageddon Knight is slightly better. In this deck, specifically in my build of this deck, Mathematician is leaps and bounds better because it has that Spellcaster tag, right? Which means you can summon this guy, and if you have any other Earth or any other Dark, which all your other Darks are Shaddolls, in your grave, you can just send Squam, send Grista, make Mercer, keep this guy on board, and then Spellbook of Knowledge it away. Now, it won't come up super duper often, right? Oftentimes, you'll need to send Squam, send Grista, and then use the Mathematician to make the Mercer. But, like, that's still fine, right? That's still a one-card combo with Mathematician. And it just so happens that if your graveyard's a little bit more set up than just summoning the Mathematician, you get the added benefit of being able to Spellbook of Knowledge it away. Or if you really want to, keep it on board and let them run it over, and then you draw a card. I think that's much less good, but that effect is also there. Armageddon Knight does not have that additional effect. It's also not a spellcaster, so I like Armageddon Knight just a touch less in this particular deck. It is a fine substitute if you want that extra, or the extra level 1 for whatever reason. By all means, feel free. I think Mathematician on the whole is probably better, right? But that's the only difference. You'll see the extra deck and the sideboard are exactly the same. So this is if you're playing the 40 card variant with the Infernoids and you don't like breaking on the Deviati. I don't like breaking. It's the reason I stopped playing Shaddolls in the first place. I do think these 5 cards, especially this guy, make it so that you break way, way, way less. Because we play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We play 10 ways to hard fuse. We play 3 ways to search any of our fusion spells. And then we also play 3, 6, 1-card starters, right? So that's 10, that's 19. 19 cards in your deck get you where you want to go most of the time. But after I playtested this version, I'm like, well, the ceiling is a little bit lower than I'd like, and I really don't like these 2 fuckers right here, Chaos and Hound. After playing with them for a number of other games, I was kind of like, they're kind of not doing a whole bunch, right? And then I saw somebody on YouTube, I'm so sorry I've forgotten your name, please sound off if you are this person in the comments, that was playing Wake Cup Shaddolls, which was so interesting to me. So let's talk about the Wake Up cards, right? So off rip, we got these guys. Wake Up Cup, Wake Up Kuro. The person whose profile I saw, I think, was playing more than just these 2. My 2 cents, these 2 are really the only ones that are worth playing. And even Kuro, I'm not super duper in love with, but it does open up a lot more game for you, right? You'll see right here, we have the Decatron and the Deviati back in the list. These again are cuttable for Mathematician if you'd like. I think that's fine. I think having a 1-card starter as opposed to having a higher ceiling is more than acceptable, right? Similarly, any number of these can be cut for Mathematician. This is for people who maybe don't have Mathematician or don't like Mathematician for whatever reason and don't like Armageddon Knight, you know, pop off, do your thing. People who really want the normal summon of Decatron and really don't want to see the other normal summons. Cartesia, of course, being an exception because it's also a fusion spell, right? So this guy says, its flip effect we don't really care about that so much, right? If this card is in your hand, you can discard one other flip monster, and if you do special summon this card in face-up attack position or face-down defense position. So what this card allows you to do, depending on what the combination of cards in your hand is, if you open this and Squam, you can punt Squam, summon this guy, trigger Squam, send Grista, and if your graveyard is lined up or if your hand is lined up, just make the Mercer, you're off to the races, right? You can punt this guy and Hedgehog to search the Squamata and then fuse it away if you have one of the fusion spells. You can reveal this guy, punt the Wendy you have in your hand, summon Beast, get your draw 2, dog. Who knows? You can maybe summon the Hollow if you already got the Lev in your hand, right? But this card is very... It's an extender, essentially, right? That's kind of the way I see it. It's a 27 body, so it's good. It has that nice wind attribute, so you can hard make Wendy K, right? It's very, very strong. I like this card. I don't know if it'll stay in the deck. I'm currently testing it, right? The last thing about this card I'll mention, during your end phase, you can target 1 flip monster in your graveyard, special summon it in face down defense position, right? So this has some extra utility if you have a Wendy K on board, right? Say you don't have the Hollow, or say you don't have the hollow, or you don't have the dragon set on your board. Maybe you do and you have the other one engraved. Maybe you have a Squamata engraved. Squamata's flip effect is a man-eater bug. It's good enough. for sure, good enough, right? So maybe you have like one of these three in your grave, or maybe you have a beast in your grave you want to reuse during your next during your opponent's turn, right? You just special summon it off of this guy, and now you have either a flip for Wendy K or a second flip for Wendy K, right? So as I talked about earlier, Wendy K is really good when you have set monsters on your board, obviously. But yeah, so that's why I like Earl so much. It has two very good effects. Let's talk about Kuro. So Kuro is interesting. Its flip effect is like fine. You can target one of the face-up monsters on the field, change to face-down defense. For one, its stats are 400 attack, 27 defense. Inherently less good than Earl, just because Earl can let you get more aggressive, which Shaddolls, surprisingly, a lot of people view it as a mid-range deck, and it is. With these new cards, with Mercer specifically, it has become much more easily able to OTK, in my opinion, right? And this will just kind of help you along with that. So you can reveal this card in your hand, add one wind flip monster from your deck to your hand, except Kuro, then discard one card, right? So the benefit of this is if you open like this guy and this guy, or if you open this guy and this guy plus another Shaddoll, you can activate Kuro, search Earl, discard either Wendy or the other Shaddoll you have, then activate Earl to discard the other one and special summon this, and special summon this guy, right? This guy does not allow you to special summon himself. So that's the other reason this guy sucks ass. He's generally, or she, I guess. They look like she's, thems, whatever. Cardboard, again, who cares? Gender them however you want. But yeah, so Kuro doesn't let you special summon her, right? She is just a thing in hand that can let you further extend your plays. The reason I don't love this card is because it specifically says win, right? So the only targets you have are Earl and Wendy, right? Earl is pretty good if you have another Shaddoll in hand. Wendy is like decent to search and then discard, but the biggest issue with this guy is one, he sticks in hand the entire game. I don't love that. And two, maybe more importantly, because he's specifically on wins, you're kind of more inclined to play the other wake-up cards. And the other wake-up cards are like fine. I think one of them lets you like reveal it to flip up a face down. So situations where you have like a beast face down on your board, or during your, I hope it's a quick effect, I don't even know if it is. But if it's a quick effect, if you have like a hollow face down and no Wendy K on your board, you can like flip up the hollow, right? Like it's okay, but it clogs the deck up with unnecessary monsters if you play those other wake up cards. So I just opted not to. I just said 2 Kuro, 2 Earl, 2 Wendy, right? This is again for people who don't like Mathematician, who maybe want that higher ceiling with these two guys, who maybe want some more extension out of their deck. You'll notice this list is at 41. I couldn't really figure out another card to cut. Some people might say Knowledge. I really think playing Knowledge at 1, you may as well just play it at none, right? The reason you play 2 is because you don't ever want to open 2 of them, but you do generally want to see 1, or maybe draw into 1, right? So it's a good card. I like this card a lot. This version of the deck is fine. It's very okay, I think. I think this one is maybe a little bit better. Maybe not, just depends on your playstyle, right? But ultimately, I have landed currently on this build. So y'all will notice, this is a 41 card deck. I'm not playing the Kuro, I am playing the Earl. I am playing 2 Mathematician, I am playing the Infernoid and the Deviati. Specifically, this deck is at 41, so I dead draw this guy less. I almost want to dead, like, put in a 42nd card, because I think, theoretically, realistically, you could, but then you also run the risk of, like, having some worse hands, right? Like, maybe if you put in a 3rd Fusion Deployment or a 3rd Cartesia, well, maybe not a 3rd Cartesia. Like, you can maybe fix those problems, but again, the only other card I maybe want to put is, like, a 3rd Squam or a 3rd Mathematician to put it to 42, but well, Mathematician doesn't run you the risk of, like, breaking. But, like, there's a world where you open just triple Squamata and Beast and Hollow, and then you're just sitting to yourself crying, being like, why did I play the 3rd Squamata? Maybe if I had played 2 Squamata, I would have drawn into an Elshadal Fusion, and it would have been sort of off to the races, right? So I'm testing this out currently. This is my current up-to-date build for this deck, right? I like this deck a lot. I think it is very good. I've already explained to you all the reasons behind all of these cards. Mathematician's a 1-card starter. These 2 increase your ceiling by a fuck ton. This is just a phenomenal extender that you can also use to make 1DK, right? I'm still testing this deck. I'm still fine-tuning this deck. I still don't think this deck is perfect. As I've been saying, there's a very real possibility this card is cut eventually. Right now, I'm really liking it. There was specifically one game where I opened like Cartesia, I think both of these chuds, and I want to say like an El Shaddoll and maybe a Shaddoll fusion, or maybe it was like the Decatron. I don't really remember, but the hand was really weird. Or not, no, I opened 2 of this, I opened 2 of these, and I opened the knowledge. Obviously, that's what it had to be. That's why I couldn't run the last card, because I'm stupid. But yeah, so that was the hand. I just summoned this Cartesia, I spell of knowledge it away, and I drew the left Shaddoll fusion, and I drew the Unleashing, and then I won the game because knowledge literally saved my ass. Maybe there's a more consistent card you could play. If you can think of it with this list at these points, let me know. Really quick to go over the points of this deck. It's 10 here, or excuse me, 10 here, 10 here, 60 here. That's 80, right? It is then 7 more here, that's 87. It is then 6 more here, that puts you to 93. It is then 2 and 2, which puts you at 97. That can't be right. There's the last 3, the Ultimate Slayers. I'm being stupid. I was doing my math completely correct. I just forgot I have a sideboard. The last 3 points on Ultimate Slayer, that makes a full 100 points, right? The last thing I want to talk to y'all about, substitutes. So, y'all will notice in my first build, I was playing an alpha, right? There was a game with that first deck where I opened alpha and I opened a kaiju, which effectively let me remove 2 monsters with the same kaiju, right? Armageddon Knight, as I said, is a very solid substitute for Mathematician, right? Mathematician is a very good card for a number of the reasons I said, but some people do like Armageddon Knight more. Maybe you're on an Allure build, right? Allure's like what, 3 points, 5 points, something like that? Maybe your build looks a little bit different from mine and you just came to my deck looking for some tech options. And if that's the case, maybe you play Armageddon because you're on Allure Darkness. Who knows? I know. But other options. Infernoid Anuku, right? I talked about this guy a little bit. He's the spell negate, whereas Deviati's the monster negate. If you are very worried about your opponent activating spell traps, and you're not really worried about them activating monster effects, there's a world where you maybe main deck this guy, or maybe you side this guy for playing against like Labyrinth is, I think, a very prominent trap deck in the format. And then you side out the Deviati for the Anuku going first, and then you just summon the Decatron, and you send the Anuku to negate your opponent's traps, right? Just something I thought about. Not a super big deal. And then finally, my other 0-pointed substitute was Sol and Luna for the main deck. This card is like aggressively okay. It's interesting with Wendy K specifically, because like theoretically it's like the 3rd interrupt with Wendy K, right? So if you have a Wendy K and a Hollow, or a Wendy K and a Dragon, and your opponent has 3 monsters, you trigger Wendy K, Book of Moon one of them, you Dragon/Hollow the other, and then you chain Sol and Luna to reset your monster that you just flipped, and then Book of Moon their other guy, right? And if they're not on a fusion deck, that effectively renders their guys on board dead. So you've theoretically dealt with like half their board. I do think it's very situational, and the reason I'm not playing it is because it's really only good when your opponent has a board and you have like 100% gotten to Wendy K and Hollow, right? So it's cool. It's not the best, but like maybe I'm wrong, right? Maybe you play it and you find out actually this card's beyond broken, and here's why. You come back to my YouTube video and you're like, actually, you're a big dumb stupid idiot, and here's why, you goddamn moron. So, if that happens, please let me know. I would love to know if I inspired any wins. The rest of these techs, specifically the Dark Hole and the Chalice, and these 2 down here, we'll talk about those in just a moment, but these 2 down here, these are more for if you don't have a Cliche the Dark Dragon, which currently I don't, right? There's an argument to be made that Dark Hole is kind of better than the Kaijus. Reason being is because it does not require you to have, it doesn't take up more space in your extra deck, right? Or in your sideboard, excuse me. So you can just remove the Interrupt the Kaiju Slumbers, summon the Dark Hole. It also gets stopped by less stuff, right? Interrupt the Kaiju Slumber, while it does have a second effect, which I think makes it very, very valuable, can also theoretically be stopped by Ash, I want to say. I could be wrong, but I believe it can, right? Similarly, it can also be stopped by like, I think Dominus Impulse stops it, Solemn Warning stops it, right? So like there are some cards that are kind of in the format, I think, that stop Intrepid Kaiju Slumber that cannot stop Dark Hole. So that's kind of the benefit of Dark Hole, right? So if you're not on the Ecclesia of the Dark Dragon or on any of the other pointed cards in my list, and you want to play Dark Hole, I think there's for sure an argument to be playing Dark Hole. I just like Intrepid Kaiju Slumber just the barest touch more, because even though it gets stopped by more stuff, it has 2 effects. So effectively, it can eat 2 hand traps for the price of 1 card, which is very good. That's kind of the main reason I like it. And if they don't stop the second effect, then you get a Kaiju, which can then get rid of an opponent's interruption on the board, which is also very good, right? And also gives you bodies, right? Like, giving yourself big-ass bodies is always nice. So these 2 and these 2 down here are specifically if you don't have the Dark Dragon guy, Ecclesia of the Dark Dragon, and I guess this guy as well. I forgot he has a point now. Man, I really love Genesys, bro. I love how consistently the format changes and you have to just adapt. It's so cool. Anyway, so these 3 in the sideboard, or these 2 in the main and or side, I'll leave it up to y'all. But if you don't have the, if you're not playing some of the pointed cards that I'm playing, you can definitely play these, right? To sub them in. Now, the rest of these guys, specifically the rest of these guys, are if you're not playing Winda, right? Winda is 60 goddamn points, and that is a massive chunk of points, right? So I understand the allure of not playing Winda. I personally obviously think Winda is better than every single card you are seeing on the board right now. I think Winda is just that good. There's a reason it's at 60 points, and the fact that you can just abuse and reuse it is beyond disgusting to me. And I think if you're playing Shaddolls and Genesys, you want to be playing Winda, right? But for now, if you don't want to play Winda, well, you can side in a playset of Bell, which is 6 points, a playset of Ogre, which is 4 points. That's 30 points right there. You're still only at half the points of Winda, right? So at that point, you may as well be like, oh, I can throw in a playset of Fulos. That's another 24 points. So that's 9 cards for the price of a Winda, and you still have 6 points left over to spend on 2 Book of Moon, or maybe on 3 Chalice, 3 Dark Hole, right? Or if you want to be freaking based, you can maybe play some combination of those cards, or, hear me out, you play a playset of Ogre, and you play Emergency Teleport. So Emergency Teleport is very good in this deck. Well, it's decent in this deck if you're playing Ogre specifically, because yes, you can summon an Ogre off of it and have A, a light on board, and B, a destruction effect on board. But C, this card lets you search Wendy. Wendy's a psychic type. In my first iteration of 2019 Invoke Shaddolls, before we got the Dogmatica stuff, you best believe I was playing one of this card, specifically to be able to just get to Wendy immediately and then do some cute shit with it. I was also on Ogre, so I was like synchroing and stuff. It was a very fun time in my life. I really enjoyed that version of the deck. But I think Italy deserves to be mentioned. I don't know if it's the best card to run, but I think if it suits your playstyle, if you just love Emergency Teleport, you can definitely run it with pretty good results in this deck, right? Foolish Burial. Tragically, this card is still 25 points. I would really like to see it go to like, I don't know, 7 points going on me. That would be super cool. I don't think they ever will though. This card is way too good to be at 7 points. It's way too good to be even at like, I think even at 15 points is when people start considering this guy. I start considering this guy when he gets down to 15. Because the way the points currently look, I could theoretically play 1 Schism, 1 App Clone, 1 Winda, 1 Foolish Burial if it's 15, and then have 5 points left over for like a Cartesia, and then just play 3 Fusion Deployment, right? And that problem kind of solves itself. Neither here nor there, but I think this card is beyond insane. But if you're not playing Winda, this is only 25 points. This is like one of the best cards in the deck, right? Much like App Clone, this is almost a 1-card starter by itself. App Clone actually is a 1-card starter when it's sent off left by itself. This is almost a 1-card starter by itself, right? You can send any of your Shaddoll monsters to trigger their effects. Meaning you can send Squamata, you can then send Grista, and then you can make whatever requisite fusions you would like. In that scenario, it would have to be App Clone or Shekanaga. But hey, maybe you summon the App Clone, and then use Spellbook of Knowledge the App Clone away, draw 2 cards, and then trigger the App Clone effect, right? Like, there's a lot of... This card is so beyond crazy in this deck. Obviously, if you've ever played Shaddolls, you know that, right? Now moving on to the sideboard. Again, these are for if you are on Packbit. You'll see Packbit is one of the extra deck subs I have here, right? But these cards are pretty good. Cosmic Cyclone is slightly better than Twin Twister, even though it costs life points, because you don't discard a card, and the deck is all about keeping advantage. Crow is interesting. I don't know if it's necessarily better than Meister. Obviously, Konami thinks so because it banishes, and I think most people would agree that it is. I'm sort of 50-50. I kind of like the fact that Meister can just stop the effect as opposed to banishing, because even though a lot of effects that trigger Engrave target other cards in Grave, there's a number of cards in the graveyard, like Squamata, like Hedgehog, like Wendy, that if they get crowed, whoop-de-fucking-do, the effects still resolve, right? It just robs me of a Shaddoll body, which, for what it's worth, sometimes is enough. But if you want to play this card, I think you play it in combination with Meister. I don't think they necessarily replace each other. Maybe they do in your mind. Maybe you play 2 and 2. Who knows, right? Lances if you're afraid of Shifter, right? Very, very real reason to play this card. I think this card is very good into Shifter specifically. Excuse me, not if you're afraid of Shifter. That's my bad. I forgot this card says during your opponent's turn. You play this if you're just afraid of banishing during your opponent's turn. Straight up, right? Like, say you've done your full wombo combo and your opponent draws into a Shifter, they have no card in their grave and they trigger the Shifter, you can then chain the Lancia. Or if they have a Dim Fizz, you can then chain the Lancia, and then you're free to do your wombo combo stuff and still use all your grave effects, right? So like that, there's some utility to this card. I do think this card was way better when it wasn't pointed, and the Heralds also were not pointed, but again, neither here nor there. Gordian Slicer is very interesting removal. I think there is a place for this card. Maybe it's not this deck, right? Maybe it's not. I do think there's an argument to be made to play it in this deck though, because if you're in a matchup where like you're not siding in Ultimate Slayer, or maybe you don't like Ultimate Slayer and you want like a wider variety of cards to send off the left Shaddoll fusion, maybe you just play this guy instead, right? This card's insane, obviously. Targeting removal, my bad. But you banish 6 cards from your extra for each card you target, or 1 card from your hand, right? So if you've done like your full wombo combo stuff, your opponent doesn't really have interrupts, but they have a shit ton of back row, you can then activate Gordian Slicer after you've done this, get rid of the rest of your hand if you'd like, although I don't necessarily recommend that unless you have game, and then also banish maybe like the 6 cards you have left over in your extra deck. Again, don't necessarily recommend that unless you have exactly game. But then you can just return all those cards to the hand, right? It's just very interesting removal. I like it fine. Hey Trunade is something my buddy Ben suggested to me. Shout out to Ben, friend of the channel. Return all set spell traps on the field of the hand. So this specifically does not beat... oh, this song is a banger. Oh my god. It's the Full Metal Alchemist opening. No wonder it's so good. Obvious. Shout out to Glitch City, by the way, for the music. It's all royalty free. Love her to death. She's awesome. Please check out her channel if you get the chance. She's the best. But yeah, hey Trunade. Return all set spell traps on the field to the hand, meaning it does not play around Dim Fizz, meaning it does not play around your opponent's schisms that are already face up. And I'm sure there's a number of other cards that it doesn't play around that I'm not thinking of. Those are the big 2 that came to my mind, right? But it is good in that if you are playing against like a deck that sets a shit ton of back row, you can just activate this and go full ham and just beat the shit out of your opponent, right? Similarly, if you don't want to discard a card, but you are deathly afraid of Dimensional Fissure, so kind of the opposite of this guy, but still. I like Twister. I like this card specifically because I have 2 ultimate copies, maybe 3 ultimate copies of this in my Edison stuff. It's a very fun card. I don't necessarily think it's particularly good, but like if your opponent has a Dim Fissure, you just pay 500 and then target it and then blow it up. The reason this is better than MST, specifically for getting rid of Dim Fizz, which is the only reason I think most Shaddoll decks would really want to, this in like non-fusion area, would be the things that like you want to be citing back row hate in for, right? The reason it's better than MST is because if you're playing against Radiant Typhoon, they might get some triggers off of your MST. So until that deck is pointed into Oblivion or rotated out of the format, I think citing an MST is dumb. My 2 cents. But yeah, so that's it for the sideboard stuff. Please let me know if y'all got any more suggestions to sub in for the sideboard. Like I said, my list isn't perfect, so any suggestions y'all have, I'll gladly, happily try out. And then for extra deck subs, The only extra deck sub that is no points in this little list is Packbit, right? Packbit is free, and specifically you sub this in for Ecclesia because A, it's much cheaper, and B, it lets you have the freedom of playing like a Dark Hole, a Chalice, maybe, I'm trying to think of like what are these cards here that is, maybe a Book of Moon. Maybe you just want to be like, hey, I really want to main deck my one ultimate rare Book of Moon. Let me take out the Ecclesia, let me put in the Packbit so I can main deck the ultimate Book of Moon. Pop off King, you do you. Or Queen. Or them Royalty. Let me know if there's an honorific like King or Queen for that's also gender neutral. My liege. Never mind, I figured it out. Don't let me know shit. I'm the smartest guy in the world. My liege. There it is. Pop off liege. Doesn't sound as good when you don't put the word my in front of it. Alright, either way. But yeah, so generally the reason you play Packbit over Ecclesia if you have both is because it frees up some more points, right? And Chalice being at 1 is beyond insane. I think if I can't get an Ecclesia before my next Genesis locals, I'm 100% gonna have to slot Chalice somewhere in the list. I think Chalice is... It blows my fucking mind that this card's at 1 point. I don't know what the fuck Konami was thinking, but thank you, Konami Rep, that did that. But yeah, so Packbit's the direct sub for Ecclesia. The rest of these, so specifically Garura is in here. If you don't want to play Ultimate Slayer and you want to play like a Gordian Slicer, or maybe you want to play some other kind of spot removal, right? Pop off, do you? But if you don't want to play those, you play the Garura specifically because you can send it off left Shaddoll Fusion and draw a card, right? So like 9 out of 10 games that won't happen because 9 out of 10 games you'll be sending App Clone. But like the one out of 10 games where you've already accessed App Clone, or you don't need to use the App Clone, so you want to save it for like a Schism or an El Shaddoll Fusion, you just send the Garura to get the +1, right? It's good. I think it's good enough. These three you have to make some adjustments to play Golden Malong. Not too terribly many, but like some. There's maybe a world where you cut out one of the Earth Fairies. I think the Earth Fairies are better than Malong. Maybe you cut out one of the Earth Fairies and you cut out the Ecclesia to run Malong and run like 2 Chalice, right? I don't know. Do you, King? Pop off. Do you, Queen, King, my liege, whatever. These two I think you play if you're not playing Winda. I think just having the versatility of these guys, these are both 7 points each, which is why you don't play them unless you're not playing the Winda. But the versatility of having these guys in your extra deck is just clean off the left Shaddoll Fusion, right? Like, if you hard open left Shaddoll, you can activate left Shaddoll, send Infernoid Evil, and then search the Void Unleashed, excuse me, and then you're off to the races, right? Ints, if you're going second, you can activate the left Shaddoll. If you have access to the whole of your extra deck, you just send the ints as like another interrupt to pop your opponent's board, right? Boy, I know how to yap. Jesus. Here's the thing, I love Shaddolls. Hopefully I'll be able to edit this tomorrow and get this up by Wednesday of this week. I didn't even get to show y'all any of the combos. I have to save that for our next video. Hopefully I'll be getting like maybe like 1 video a week from me. But yes, TLDR, super duper TLDR. Shaddolls are awesome. There are 4 lists in my video. You can scroll through to find all of them. There's also a last tab at the end that will show you the substitutes for the deck. If you, for whatever reason, scroll to the end, which by all means feel more than free to, just go back and like scroll through, take a look at what I'm talking about while I'm discussing the various lists. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment or a subscription or a share or whatever the social media people tell you to do to make their videos pop off. I actually don't care if this pops off. I literally made this for like 4 people in the Shaddoll Facebook group, which if y'all really want to learn more about Shaddolls as an archetype and see what kind of lists people are having success with, either for Genesis or for Advance, check out that Shaddoll Facebook group. It's a phenomenal resource. Now don't get me wrong, I haven't seen any like heavy topping players post there, but that's not to say the players who are posting there are bad. I just think if any of the top, like the best players are testing this, they're not sharing their ideas, right? Because as we all know, Winda is a beast. Winda's a house and a half. But yeah, join that Facebook group. I'll be updating all my Shaddoll stuff in that Facebook group. Yeah, well, I guess let me know. Please let me know if you're excited about Shaddolls. If y'all want to talk Shaddoll deck theory, Shaddoll deck ideas, if y'all want to talk about how your games went, if y'all want either some feedback on the way y'all are playing the deck, or maybe like some misplays y'all have y'all think y'all might be making, hit me up. Either in the YouTube comments or find me on Facebook, dog. Donish Ali. I'm in like half the Yu-Gi-Oh groups. Find me there. Message me. I will gladly talk to you. If you were looking for someone to talk to about this deck, I love this deck. This deck is my favorite deck of all time. Of all time. Hands down, bar none, right? The fact that we got Wendy and El Shaddoll as a secret, brother, I'm eating. I'm eating so good. I don't know what happened to my secret Shaddoll fusion. I still need to find that. I'm very embarrassed that I don't currently have it, but I need to find that, and I need to slot it into my deck somewhere. I believe it comes secret. Maybe it doesn't. But yeah, that's it for the video. Hopefully this helps one of y'all, maybe some of y'all out. Sorry for yapping so long. I'm very seriously hoping that this will be less than the hour and 25 minutes it currently is. Maybe I'll just upload it as a slog and I'll put chapters to make it easier for people to navigate, because I know I do love to talk, right? But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, and week, and year, and life. I hope whoever's watching this is happy. That's really what I want. Ultimately, I just want to bring y'all some joy by playing what is my favorite deck, and hopefully either is or will become your favorite deck. Didn't I have a sign-off? Did I have a sign-off? I'll catch you sweet and spicy, sexy ass duelists in the next one. Later. Whoops. That will have to be cut. Okay. Goodbye. Bye. If you're still watching, why are you still watching? This is an hour and 25 minutes. Oh my god. Goodbye.